Okay, hi there. How are you, Taylor?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, good. Welcome, welcome. Um,
Yo.
I'm so excited to dive into a great topic with you today. So I'll kick it off. My name is Susan Glens, you guys. I'm the team leader of the Susan Glens team, and I have with me my amazing business partner, Taylor Presley. Taylor is a buyer specialist on our team, and the topic we're here to talk about today is how to win at presenting offers. And actually,
Yeah.
a topic that you picked, Taylor. So tell me why this topic was so important for you to make it like the very first thing you want to talk about on this series.
Yes, for sure. So I think that this is probably one of the most important things that we can deliver for our clients. And being that I am a buyer specialist in a seller's market that we're still experiencing right now, I think this is the most important thing that we can do for our clients. Is make sure that we are delivering these offers, the best way that we possibly can, and making sure that we're really highlighting all of the terms that our clients have. Anything that's super strong and is going to work on their behalf, we want to make sure that we're really sharing that and getting that across the board to the listing agent. Why is our offer going to stand out above anyone else's? I think that's so important.
Awesome. So before we dive into some techniques, because I know that any agents listening are going to want to hear, what we do that we feel sets us apart and is really advocating for our clients. And any, clients or prospective buyers listening are also going to want to hear that. Let's dive into, or let's back up a little bit and talk about the state of the market right now, because you mentioned we're in a seller's market. So how many offers are you seeing that you're competing with out there?
Well, it's not just ours ever. Let's just put it that way. So it is always multiple offers. So that is something that we always have to be prepared for. Any property that's being listed that most buyers are super interested in, properties that we know don't come up very often. The inventory is super low still. And in these unfortunate circumstances, we're seeing even less inventory than we have been for the last few years. So that's something that we really need to be prepared for when these awesome properties come up, that your buyers are not going to be the only ones that are interested. So
Yeah.
that's always something to consider.
And you mentioned months of inventory. And for those that are listening that don't know what that means, let me just pause and give some perspective. So we generally say that anything with any market with less than 3 months of inventory, which means that if no new homes hit the market, it would take about 3 months for the current pool of buyers to sell that through or to eat that inventory up. That's a seller's market. Anything less than 3 months of inventory, that means that there's not enough houses to satisfy the demand. We get between 4 and 7 months. It's more of a balanced market. There's just enough houses to satisfy the demand, and it's really healthy. Not tons of multiple offer situations, depending on if it's a really great house, right? And then anything over 7 months of inventory is a buyer's market. So that means that there's a plethora of homes to pick from, and buyers can basically take their pick and name their price. So we've been in a seller's market in Rochester since 2013, 2012, it started to come back. And that's really all you've known. You grew up in this seller's market,
Yeah.
right? So you've had to adapt some skills pretty quickly. And you mentioned that we've been in a seller's market. Just to give some perspective for people on the call, there are pockets of Rochester, suburbs, city, that have 2 weeks or less of inventory. That's how
Yeah,
quickly things are moving. I
for
mean, we've
sure.
written offers on properties with 20, 15, 20, 25 offers. We're not just talking two offers, although that does happen. We're
Yeah.
talking a lot of offers. So how do you stand out with all of that, right? So before we dive into the tactics, I want you to talk to me a little bit about mindset. And everybody knows I start these calls with mindset because it's the foundation of what we do. So what is your mindset going into presenting an offer for your buyer?
So my mindset personally, this is something that I've had to really work on, because in the beginning of all of this, it was super scary, as it was for most. And I was like, I'm going to have to get really deep within myself, like I'm nervous for sure, but if I'm nervous and I allow that to kind of show through, I'm going to make my buyers nervous. So how are we going to try and not only get through this together, but we're going to adapt, right? Like we have to adapt to this new way, this new thing, this new way of real estate that we don't know how long is going to last. And most of it's going to be our new norm. So initially it was very stressful. It was really tough. But just kind of finding that happy medium with each individual buyer. Everybody is different. So some buyers, you know, they were ready to dive right in and still keep going, you know, like they had a goal of when they wanted to move and we were going to make that happen. Other buyers were more so like, you know, I'm still going to sit back. I'm going to watch the inventory. I'm going to keep my eyes open. And we're still going to be interested in listings, but, you know, maybe we'll wait a little bit longer. So I think initially it was a little bit scary, but having those personal conversations with every active buyer has been amazing. It's been a great time for us to, you know, get more on track with what they're looking for, dive a little bit deeper, comfort each other. You know, that's been the other part of it. It's not just me kind of talking them through it. They're kind of talking me through it too, in their seat, because it looks very different from both sides. So I think taking the time to really build the relationships with current clients and past clients have been a blessing in this whole process so far.
Well, and just to add clarity for folks listening, the process or the time period that you're talking about, the fear, the change, it's this COVID-19 pandemic and the quarantine we've been put under, and how do we adapt? How do we remain flexible so we can keep people healthy and service our clients at a really high level? And I love how transparent you are. You've always been just so raw, real, and honest. And I think that's one of the things that people relate to you most about, because you will be raw, real, and honest with them in a transaction. You know, we're not robots, we're humans, and we have really great insights to give. And we also have our own questions and doubts. And so to be able to be honest with them, I think is really important. And thank you for having that raw moment where you said, yeah, there was a little bit of fear in the mindset. So let's shift gears to, what is your perspective on your relationship with your co-op agents? Because we're going to be talking about presenting offers to a seller's agent.
Yeah.
Very foundation of that is the relationship with that agent. So tell me what your viewpoint is on how that should look.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to, you know, it's not just a one-time interaction between the buyer agent and the seller agent. You know, it's not just, I'm going to present you this offer and that's going to be the last time we talk. I think that there is a lot to be said for the way you present your offer almost kind of lays the groundwork for how the rest of the transaction is going to go. You know, in our case, we're on a team of specialists, so we have a lot of support. We have a client care director who's amazing and keeps everything on track. However, the buyer agent is still very much part of the whole transaction. You know, we're still very much involved. And some agents that are single agents, they're doing it all, you know? So I think it really shows the listing agent on the other side who they're kind of working with and what the rest of that transaction would be like. Yeah. I think that's really important because they want to know, just like a buyer agent would want to know, like the comfort that we have within each agent and making sure that we can get both our buyer and seller to the closing table really smoothly and easily.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you view that co-op agent as almost a partner in this, getting you to the closing table. That yes, they represent the seller and the seller's best interests all day long. You represent your buyer and your buyer's best interests. Make no mistake. And that doesn't mean you're adversarial. That doesn't mean it's, you know, I win and you have to lose, or I have to lose and you have to win. It's let's find win-win, because at the end of the day, your seller wants to sell and my buyer wants to buy. So let's get them to the closing table together. And if you can establish that you're that kind of agent up front, it will speak volumes, right? Because it's your offer and a couple of others, and they're very similar. And the seller asks their buyer, their listing agent, like, what do you think? Yeah. They might look at which agent do they think can actually get it to the closing table, and which agent is going to be the most, the best to work with, I guess, when problems are going to arise, right? Yep.
I've actually also, like, on the flip side of that too, like I've had some instances where, you know, maybe my offer didn't get accepted, but I've talked so much with the listing agent and I've never met them before. Like maybe they're an agent I've never had an encounter with. And just because I have talked to them so frequent throughout, and I, really laid the groundwork like to show how committed I was. I've befriended these other agents just because of that, like, and we hope to maybe work together on a deal in the future, but it's something that I think is really important, and it helps both the buyer and the seller. I think it just feels a lot better. It just makes the transaction so much more enjoyable for each other. So,
Well, and you become memorable too. So if that first deal falls apart and you made an impact on that agent, do you think you might be one of their first calls back?
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Hey, are your buyers still interested? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, to put it in a nutshell, if for buyers out there that are, interviewing agents or looking for an agent, make sure you have a conversation around how they view that co-op relationship and what are their relationships like with other agents, because they're your an extension of you in the real estate market,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so next question. Walk me through, before we get into how you present offers, walk me through what you do leading up to that. Is there any prep work? Is there any communication or anything before actually presenting the offer?
Yeah, for sure. So after we've kind of solidified that this is a house that my buyer will be wanting to proceed with and will be wanting to present an offer, first things first that I always like to ask the agent, and I try to feel this out, throughout the showing period. But I really like to ask the questions about what's really going to work best for the seller, like what is going to make this the best opportunity for the seller, like what kind of things are going to appeal to them. So the closing time frame is always awesome to know. So if they're building, or if they still need to find a house, anything that could appeal to them, and make the transaction, easier for them on their side. So I always like to ask that question. I always like to ask too, like what kinds of things will make us stand out, like, and sometimes people think that's a little strange to ask that question, but sometimes listing agents are very transparent with it and they will just be very honest. So some people get, a little fuzzy. They don't want to ask too invasive of questions, but I just like to ask, what is something that the seller is really looking for? What's going to make our offer really stand out? And I take all of that information and bring it right back to my buyer, and we pick apart every single thing that could possibly work, to make it stand out for them. So
I love that. So you're getting information from the seller, from the seller's representative, to figure out how can you help your buyer be in the best light and have the best opportunity to win.
exactly.
Because on the listing side, which myself and our partner Chelsea really represents a lot of, is we see all different kinds of prep work. Meaning sometimes nobody calls and asks us anything. We just get an email show up with an offer. And that says something, right? That says, in a way, how committed that agent is. How will the communication be throughout the process? Are they thorough? Are they asking questions that when I'm talking to someone like you and they call me up and ask me those kinds of questions, I think to myself, this agent's got it going on. This agent knows what they're doing. They're asking smart questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not always about price, like, and you probably experienced that many times on the listing side for the seller. It's not always about price. And a lot of buyers agents in the market, you guys might understand, like, it's a lot to do with terms a lot of the time. Price is not always the winning ticket. So
I'm going to give you a great example for that. And I'm making this up, and yet it's happened in certain ways with just different personal property items for me on the seller side. But let's say we have a seller who puts in the private remarks, which is for agents, basically saying that the washer and dryer, they really want to take their washer and dryer, right? They're brand new, they plan to take them. And one agent writes an offer and includes the washer and dryer because most of the time they're included. Yeah. And there's another offer where it's excluded. And other than that, the offers are pretty much identical. If the agent had asked up front, let's say those buyers that asked for the washer and dryer lose the deal.
Yeah.
Because their agent failed to really understand if that was a deal breaker or not. And for the sellers, that was a deal breaker, right? Something so little where those buyers would have said, take it off. We want the house, take it off, right? So those questions are very, very important.
And I think it's more important for smaller things like that, things that you don't necessarily put top of mind. Like those little smaller things are things that could really be ultimate deal breakers for certain sellers. Everyone is very unique and knows what they're looking for. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So prep work, calling, asking questions, asking what the seller is looking for, what will set us apart, timelines, terms. And then obviously, in addition, you've already done all your comps, your comparables. So you've already guided your client on price so that you can structure the offer in a way that will hopefully be most appealing to the seller. So we just fast
yeah.
forwarded through all of that.
Yep.
So tell me what happens next.
So circling back on what I initially had started with, I think this is the most important piece of the puzzle. Yes, of course, market analysis and pricing strategies and talking your buyer through this and really solidifying that, submitting an offer is what they really want to do. This is the next best thing. So what I typically will do is not only will I, keep the agent updated, the listing agent, every step of the way and let them know we're compiling an offer, we will be writing, when is a good time to get on the phone with you. And some agents I have experienced that they're not as they don't feel that's like as normal, I guess. Like not a lot of people do this. But this is how I have been taught and I love it. And I think it's very effective. So what I will do is once I gather my offer, get it put in an email, I'll actually take all of our very strong points. So if they're contingent or non-contingent, highlight it. If we use an escalation clause, which most are familiar with, if we've used an escalation, I will literally break apart the escalation, maybe even in a little bit simpler of terms, but I will let the agent know this is what we offered and this is what we're willing to escalate up to. And here is what we're willing to compete with any competing offer. We're willing to compete X amount of dollars over. So I always make sure that that's really highlighted because escalation clauses are very much differently interpreted by different agents. So I always make sure that what we are looking to get out of the escalation is highlighted. Then of course I'll put the financing terms, if they're cash, if they're conventional, who they are pre-approved with, what bank, what loan officer. In addition to that, I might even have, depending on how competitive I'm gauging this one to be, I might even have the loan officer call the listing agent. I've had this happen quite a few times where I've had the listing agent and the loan officer talk beforehand so that that loan officer can really explain, like, so this Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, they are fully vetted. They are more than qualified to buy this home. I've been working with them for X amount of time. Because really, that's a huge part of it. I think the financing and can they really afford this house? We don't want any nervousness, during especially COVID. What if they can't afford this? So that's a huge part as well.
Yeah, or to
Yeah.
that point, what if there's high risk of furlough or their job falling apart or something like that, right? Which is a reality, unfortunately, during this time. And so I think that's really smart to have the loan officer have a conversation. Obviously, the loan officer, we would prep them and they know that they're not going to be revealing any confidential information. They're
Yep.
there to just make the listing agent feel better about the fact that they're putting their pre-approval, their stamp on that pre-approval letter.
Exactly. And you kind of mentioned something about their job too. So lately during COVID, I've actually put a whole separate paragraph into some of these offers explaining, that there is no risk at this point. Like this person is essential. So there's no nervousness there at all. Like they are very confident that their job will not be hindered in any way. So things like that just make the listing agent feel like we've already talked, like I want to put so much detail in there that they feel like they have everything highlighted where they wouldn't even need to look at the offer. Everything is in there right in front of their face.
Well, and something you said just made me kind of realize something. It just popped into my head that we know how this works. We know generally we have zero interaction with the seller. Sometimes we're allowed to actually present to the seller. And when that happens, that's amazing because we get to
Yeah.
tell our buyer story. But generally, there's a filter from our offer to the seller. It goes our buyer to us, to the listing agent, to the seller, and it's almost like telephone game, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're having the verbal conversation, you're following up with an email that bullet points all of that, you're basically reducing the amount of opportunity for the telephone game, for that message to get messed up, if you will. And I think
Yeah.
that I believe that a lot of consumers don't understand that when we say we're presenting an offer, that we're presenting to someone that represents the seller, not the seller. And we're
Yep.
relying on that seller's representative to tell our buyer's story.
Exactly.
And if we don't tell our buyer's story to the seller's agent, then our buyer story never gets told,
Yeah.
right? And the story isn't anything that would violate fair housing. We can't talk familial status, things like that. But what are the things we can tell them that don't violate anything? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
I, I
And
would,
I think that their job, like, without being too specific, but just saying, that at this time, their job has not been hindered. They've continued to work.
yep.
Because it's so unfortunate, but so many buyers, they have lost their jobs in the middle. It wasn't just from the start. Since this has been going on, jobs are still being lost all of the time. So that's been a huge concern for many buyers agents and listing agents, making sure that these deals are still going to get to the closing table and people are still going to have a home.
Yeah.
So
Another thing that I've shared in the past about my buyers to set them up for success with the listing agent is, hey, I've been working with this buyer for 6 months.
yeah.
We have a long history. These are or these are longtime clients of mine. I know their family. I've represented them on 3 other deals. So that listing agent knows, okay, this buyer has a relationship with this agent. It's not just someone they just met online, right? In terms of they're new and they haven't vetted them completely. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing, I think, is important too.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so all of those things I really like to highlight in an email just so it's very clear. And I do, when I actually get on the phone with the listing agent, I request that they do share that with their seller, just like the actual email itself as well, just so that they can really understand and see the detail in who these buyers really are, as much as we can obviously say. And then when I call them, they've already gotten the chance to look at the email and review, and we basically go through it again together. I've only ever had a couple incidences where a listing agent is just, they're just kind of, okay, thank you, like, and, kind of moves on from it. But I've more often than not have had listing agents be wowed by this. And I think that that is probably the best feeling, because nobody likes to feel like we're annoying anybody, of course, but I think when they tell you that, wow, this is presented so wonderfully, they have no question marks to tag with your offer. It's so smooth for them to just look at an offer and know exactly what's in front of them. And think of it this way, when your offer is one of 20, how overwhelming is that, for the listing agent? They have so much to sort through. And then how overwhelming is it even for the sellers? They've never done this before. They're not real estate agents. We're the professionals. So we're the ones that have to be able to lay this all out in front of them the best way that we can, the most organized, to really keep them calm, And I think that this is the best way that I have found success. And I've even had some agents tell me that they wanted to go with our offer just because of how wonderfully it was presented. And I don't say that to brag in any way. I say that because it's been such an awesome feeling to know that I'm delivering to not only my buyers, like I'm working for them, they're my buyers and I'm doing my job, but I'm also making it easier for the listing agent and know that they're confident in our offer.
Yeah. And I don't think you're bragging. I think you're taking a stand for the high standards that we've set on our team, and you're proud. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for our clients that they're represented by you. I think it's amazing. I think that
Thank
if
you.
you were a superhero, your superpower would be in what you do to present your buyer's offer. Really.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. And you made the comment just a bit ago that what did you say? Oh, even if you haven't won, you've had maybe you didn't win because the offer was cash, and there's just no way you could have beaten it, no matter how
Yeah.
amazing you presented the offer. Right? That
Yep.
happens, and yet you've had agents reach out and say just how amazing it was that you did present the offer in that way. And we had a win recently on our team. Your partner Alex presented an offer on behalf of her clients on a for sale by owner. So the for sale by
Yep.
owner, not represented by an agent.
Yes.
And so then we are actually presenting an offer to an owner, to a
Yep.
seller. Have you had the chance to do that yet?
Yes.
Yes.
I have.
So
Yep.
tell me how that even changes the dynamic.
Yeah, so it was my very first transaction this year, actually, of 2020. So I kicked off the year with a for sale by owner, which was awesome. I actually it was amazing because he was like kind of panicked. He actually admitted to me after he listed the house, he got a lot more attraction than he thought he would. He got a lot of attention really fast. So when I talked to him on the phone and let him know, my buyer loves this house, she's very interested. When would we be able to come in for a showing? And this poor man, you could just tell he was very razzled. He was like, I wasn't expecting this. This is all happening so fast. And I'm like, I totally understand, it's a learning curve for everybody, especially, selling your house this way. It's all going to be good. So we went to the showing. We were there for like an hour and a half talking to this guy. He was awesome. We got to talk directly to the seller. And I remember telling my buyer when we left that was so cool because we don't get to do that very often. It's not typical. Usually nobody's there. It's just you and the buyer. And she was like, that, so the seller's never really there. And I'm like, no, the seller is rarely ever present. Neither is the seller agent, the listing agent. But when you get to talk to the seller directly, it's sometimes even better because you can ask them the questions that you want. They're there to comfort you and tell you, I've lived in this house. This is what I've done to it. And it's just a more deeper connection. And I talked to that seller. So our offer did get accepted, which was awesome. And we talked more than I think I even talked to the buyer. Honestly, like we talked almost every day. He was awesome. He became like a friend to us, and the transaction went so smooth. It was amazing. He was so grateful because I even helped him a little bit like on the listing side with some questions that he had that he didn't really know the answers to. And we were able to just talk through the entire transaction so smoothly. The buyer was so happy at the end. It was just amazing. It was really awesome.
That's amazing. And the instance that I was referencing with Alex when I brought that up, she shared this with you, I'm sure, that
Yeah.
she had competing offers, right? She wrote for our buyer. She had competing offers, and the seller called her and said, you presented your offer so well. You were the only person that really called us and spoke to us and outlined everything, that we want to go with your offer. There were higher offers, but we want to go with you because we know you're going to get us to the closing table if this is how you work.
Yep.
It was amazing.
I was amazed, but I wasn't super amazed because she's amazing. So,
Well, and the best part is that since then, and we have other listings coming up in that neighborhood. So of course we followed up with the seller, and Alex let him know and said, hey, are there any buyers that came through you unrepresented that I could connect with and let them know about our upcoming listing?
Yeah.
And I think she's partnered with 2 buyers that are now clients of hers that he referred to us because he trusts us.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. That is like an incredible story.
Yeah.
I know.
So I think that just to wrap this up, I'd like to kind of put a bow on it. And
Yep.
if you could give people one piece of advice when it comes to presenting offers on behalf of your buyers, what would that be? If you could only give one piece.
One piece would be to pick up the phone and call.
Love
and
it.
I know it's very challenging sometimes. We're all very busy as agents, working really hard for our buyers and sellers. But I do firmly believe that if you really, want to work the hardest for our buyers and sellers, you have to pick up the phone and have that verbal conversation. Texting is so easy. I get it. It's so simple. And sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes you can get your questions answered real quick, little things. It's totally fine. But when it comes to really delivering on behalf of your buyer and delivering to that seller what that offer looks like and your strong terms, picking up the phone speaks volumes, and it gets that whole idea across of how hard you're willing to work to get both the buyer and seller to the closing table. I think it's the most important piece.
I love that. And it's so simple. And I think if we were to take a step back and put ourselves in the buyer's shoes and our client's shoes,
Yep.
and say to ourselves, what would my buyer expect if my buyer was presenting their own offer? Would my buyer be okay with texting someone their offer? Would my buyer be okay emailing their offer into the abyss and not having any type of two-way conversation? Or would my buyer expect that they're making a phone call and having that conversation? Would they expect that I, as their representative, am making a phone call and having that human touch? Right?
For sure.
Even the millennial buyers, all they want to do is text. I still believe at the end of the day, if they want that house, they want their agent to make that call.
Yep, for sure. And I always think about this, like they could have chose hundreds of other agents, like there are so many awesome agents out there that they could have partnered with, and they chose me. So I'm going to deliver on that, like that is something that I will never leave my brain, no matter how busy you get, it does not matter. They chose you. So you need to make that experience from start to finish. Like you should never let them know how busy you are. They should feel like they are the only client that you have, And I think that when we deliver like that, that is the best experience that they could have. So they deserve that.
There's about 3,000 agents in the board of realtors at the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors, and they chose you. They chose our team.
Yep.
And we don't take that for granted. We have gratitude around that every single day, and we have to live up to that and their expectations. Sure. I love that. If I were to give one piece of advice, it would be this, and this is not something that I made up, although I firmly believe it in my soul. It's actually something that I heard Gary Keller say recently, and that is, the person that tells the best story wins. And I look at the presenting of the offer as the time where we get to tell our buyer story.
Yep.
And sometimes we might tell the best story, but the cash offer wins and there's nothing we can do about it. But I feel like we lose if we don't give it our best and tell the best story on behalf of our buyers.
For sure.
Pick up the phone and tell the story, guys. Pick up the phone and tell the story.
Yes, your buyers deserve it.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Well, this was so great. I love talking to you, and I hope that people watching got some great value out of it. If you're a prospective buyer or looking to buy a home and you want some more information and you want to talk to Taylor, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes, call, text, email, anything. Calling though is for sure. I would love a call.
Awesome.
Phone call for sure. But yes, the Susan Glenn team, we'd love to help you in any way, especially navigating this really crazy, awesome market still.
Yes, and all of Taylor's information can be found on our website, and we put it all over the place. So
yes,
awesome.
Taylor, thank you, Susan. This was awesome.
Have a great day. Okay.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.